really bad. metta for the sound of the bell. Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga. Vairocana Mahamudra. Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya.
Please now join in the chanting of the 3 refuges, first in Sino-Korean and then in English.
Shisin Quimyo Ne Shivang Samse Chemang Chahe Sangchu Il Che Shivang Samse Chemang Chahe Samjo Ilshe Chisim Quim Yong Ne Shivang Samse Chemang Chahe Samjo Ilche
I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return now for a shorter period of meditation, followed by a Dharma talk from our Dharma student, Tongsun Catherine Brown. Please join me in some stretching. Warming the hands. Massaging the face. Connecting with the ridge bone of the skull. Breathing in as we lean forward. Breathing out as we fold. Breathing in as we stretch upwards. Breathing out as we fold to the side. And now stretching to the other side. Clasping the hands behind the back and leaning forward. And now a spinal twist. First to the left, bringing the eyes as far back as you can. Twisting to the right. Planting the hands at the top of your hip bones. In reverse. Grasping your life's right side, we lean to the left. Left side, whatever. Lean to one side. And then to the other side. Clasping your hands behind your head. Twisting left. Twisting right. So good morning, brothers, sisters, Dharma friends. Let's take a moment to reflect upon words of the Buddha. This reading that we have been doing this week from the chapter called The Elephant. So placing your hands palm to palm so that you may listen more deeply. The mighty elephant, Dhanapalaka, is wild when he is in rut. When bound, he will not eat, remembering the elephant grove. The fool is idle. They eat and roll in their sleep like hogs in a sty, and they have to live life over again. My own mind used to wander wherever pleasure or desire or lust led it, but now I have it tamed. I guide it as the keeper guides the wild elephant. Awake, be the witness of your thoughts. The elephant hauls himself from the mud. In the same way, drag yourself out of your sloth. And now, please listen to our Dharma student, Tong-san, who will speak to us today about the three bodies of the Buddha.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? My host has stopped the video. Okay, now I can start my video. And you can see me. I can see myself. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. This good, Ma'um? Can you hear? I have a fair amount of experience on Zoom, but I've never done this. Meaning I got no audience, or I have an audience, but I can't see them. So Mom, I'm going to be relying on you, like make faces at me, smile, laugh, wave your hands so that I know this is working. It's very, very odd. So good morning, everybody. How you going to make faces at me too? Okay. Yay. So good morning, everybody. In the before times, Osun Carla Pasalakwa, a beloved member of our Sangha, gave a Dharma talk that that remains very firmly in my memory about her work as a microbiologist and the Dharma. I don't know whether at this point I'd be looking at all of you to see if anybody remembered. I'd like to do something like that today from my own work practice. So this is going to be kind of like a Sunday morning Buddhist nerd night. My goals are in descending order of Dharma seriousness, that maybe you'll get some ideas for your own practice. Maybe you'll find it interesting. And then finally, I hope you'll like the pictures because they're really cool. So I'm sharing my screen with you, and I'm looking to Ma'um and Tayun to make sure that that's visible. Yes. So the pictures are really cool. This is from a book that I work with, that I've looked at in person. I've laid my hands on it. I love this book. It was made by a monk who I'm very much in love with, who you'll hear a lot about today. His name is Florencius, and he made it in the year 945. The book is probably about maybe 18 inches tall and like 8 inches thick. This is a big book. When you look at it in the library, they bring it to you in like a shopping cart. It takes 2 people to lift it out and put it on the table in front of you. Here's a page from another book that he made. He made this in the year 960. And he wrote all the text too. So he's not just a painter, but he's a writer as well. So there you can see the 2 pictures next to each other. And the working title for my talk, we often think about, people often say you are what you read, what you eat. I'm going to suggest that you are what you read. Okay, now I'm going to stop my share and come back. Now you're seeing my face, yes? And not my slides? Okay. Good. So my work, let me tell you a little bit about what my work is. You've seen what my work is. I'm a professor and a scholar of literature mainly, which means basically that I read, write, and teach for a living. My area is medieval Europe. So I read and write about really, really old books, which means basically I'm a nerd, like serious nerd with a capital N. I study reading and writing in Christian monasteries in what's now Spain from around 925 to around 1100. That's 1,000 years ago. That means Latin. That means weird handwriting. And that means it's such a different world from the world that I live in, from the world that we all live in. But it turns out that in some ways, it's not far at all from my everyday life, here and now. And that's what I want to talk about. The deeper I've gotten in Buddhist practice and study, the livelier these dead Christian monks feel to me. And the livelier the dead Christian monks got, the livelier my own Buddhist practice. Particularly my own relation to Buddhist scripture and, wait for it, memorization. You probably know that memorization is really important in both Buddhist history and Buddhist practice. The early sutras, the early teachings of the Buddha, like that passage that Mom read to start us off, those were all preserved by memorization for hundreds of years before they were written down. And in our training as Dharma guardians and Dharma students, we memorize a lot. And Hayun leads us in that. And it is not everybody's favorite thing. We had a meeting yesterday and we did our memorization, and several of our fellow students, Magamak and Pamal, to name check them, talked about traumatic memories of being forced to memorize, especially in Catholic school. It is not everybody's favorite thing. Being forced to memorize, and that's really what it's associated with, being forced to do something. Being forced to memorize in the 8th grade is really not a good start. It's, for many of us, associated with things that we have to do and that we do mechanically because somebody commands us to do it. We call it rote memorization, and that comes from the Latin word rota, which means wheel. And by that we mean it's just mechanical. It goes round and round and round and round and round. And when we use the word rote memorization, what we really mean is dead, dead, dead. But religious traditions all over the world disagree. Not just Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, probably every other religion in the world. Memorization is important. So let me use a reminder of what I study again. I study the work of Christian monks, particularly the monks who wrote and illustrated books for use in Spanish monasteries 1,000 years ago. Which means, more specifically, that I study the relationship of people's spiritual practice to the texts and the books that they consider sacred and their own bodies. That's clearest if you think about memorization. The body is active in memorization. It's not just something that happens in your head. It's at the center of Christian monastic practice in the Middle Ages and Christian monastic reading. It takes the form of a meditative practice that they called Lectio Divina, which means sacred reading. In Lectio Divina, you memorize. You memorize sacred texts and recite them. And you recite them not as performance, and this is important. It's not like what you do for your 8th grade English teacher. You recite it as a practice. So they did this, they performed Lectio Divina, they practiced Lectio Divina, they recited in their rooms when they were alone. They recited together in services several times a day. They recited while they worked in the fields, in the kitchen, in the monastery, while they cleaned the floors, while they shoveled the poop out of the latrines, they recited. They called their monasteries beehives because of the constant murmur of people quietly reciting their meditation practice. So this isn't rote learning so much as learning by heart. And if you think about those two ways of referring to it, you can see how totally different they are. For us, rote memorization means mechanical and dead. But when we say learning by heart, it's intimate, it's alive, right? The heart is what pumps the blood to the body. So here is what a modern scholar of medieval monks says about this practice. He himself is a monastic Benedictine. Here's what he says, and I'm quoting. For the ancients, to meditate is to read a text and to learn it by heart. That is, with one's whole being, with the body, since the mouth pronounces it, with the memory, which fixes it, with the intelligence, which understands it, and with the will, which desires to put it into practice. Close quote. My guys, my writers, always compare reading to eating. These are my two favorite things, so you can see why I might like this. They always compare reading to eating. Now, if we were sitting in the same room together, this would be a discussion question. And I'd say, how is reading like eating? So I'm just going to say it right now and give you a little while to think about it. How is reading like eating? Well, one answer that you've probably come up with is nourishment, right? Good reading nourishes your body, mind, nourishes your mind, your spirit, your soul, whatever it is, just the way eating nourishes your body. My monks thought that and said that, but it meant reading was like eating for them in another way that it might not be for us. My monks didn't read silently, and they read aloud, but they didn't read aloud because they were stupid or because they were infantile. We associate, moving your lips when you read as being a stupid thing. They didn't. They had no need for silent reading, so they didn't do it. They read aloud. So that means that when they read, they moved their lips and their tongue, just the way you do when you eat. So reading is physically and literally like eating, as well as metaphorically. We still have this idea in our metaphors. So when you talk about ruminating about a text, cows are ruminants. Rumination is part of their digestion. I see Ayun nodding because she knows about cows. We also talk about digesting a book or saying, I need to chew on that. So we have those metaphors. They're kind of buried. They weren't so buried for my guys. So I'm going to share my screen again now. And I'm hoping my screen is visible. Wave your hands, temple folks. Okay, yay. So for my guys and gals, if you are what you eat, you also are what you read. In other words, As Gregory the Great said, he was a pope and he's dead. Like he died in 604, so he's very dead. My guys read him a lot. He said, we must transform what we read into our very selves. I'll give you that again. We must transform what we read into our very selves. So for example of that, so for the rest of my time, I want to take you into the world of one of these monastic workers. And that monastic worker is probably my favorite of all the dead monks I've met. His name was Florencius. He was probably born around the year 920. I know nothing about him except that he was really, really, really good. Here are 2 pages. On the left is a page from a book that he finished in 945, and on the right is a page of a book that he finished in 960. These are pages of books that I said he finished them, he illustrated them, and we would say he copied them. But again, copy for us has these implications of being something mechanical, something that stupid people do. It's like, oh, something you're condemned to do in 5th grade. You know, you have to stand, or like Bart Simpson at the beginning of The Simpsons, right? Copying out, I will not do whatever 500 times on the board. Copying is too passive a word for what these scribes did. What scribes like Florencius did, as you'll see when I show you more pictures about him, it wasn't mechanical at all. He was in it. I know he was in it. He was in it, body, mind, and memory, and heart. All of those things, I know he was in it. So here are 2 pages of a book that he copied in the year 945. I'm just going to let you look at them. So this is an opening. So it's like opening up a book and like that, right? So these are 2 facing pages. On the left-hand side, those beautiful capital letters, red capital letters on green and yellow ground, right there, announce that Florentius is copying the words of St. Jerome. This is, in fact, the preface of St. Jerome's translation of the book of Job. So Jerome translated the book of Job from Greek and Hebrew to Latin. On the right, in the text that I've just indicated, Jerome says, the text of Job has been translated into Latin by my labor. Let each person choose what they like from what I've written and find me to be more studious than spiteful. I'd just like you to focus on that last sentence for a minute. Let each person choose what they like from what I've written and find me to be more studious than spiteful. Jerome is a prickly creature. He actually is, he is both studious and spiteful, but that's a parenthesis. Okay, here is a page from another book that Florentius copied, probably about 10 years later. It's a very gorgeous page. It starts like this. Here, this is text that Florentius himself composed. And in that passage that I've just illustrated to you, he says this. This is just straight up good Christian monkness. I'm beginning this collection of sermons in the honor of all the saints. I humbly beg that all of you who read this book remember me, the scribe Florentius. Okay. Good, straight up monastic humility. All right. But listen to him at the bottom of the page, right there. Let each person choose what they like from what I've written and find me to be more studious than spiteful. Sound familiar? It's Jerome. But there are no quotation marks. There's no title crediting Jerome. There's no indication at all that these aren't Florentius's own words. There they are, side by side. Is it plagiarism? Not in the 10th century. It's not plagiarism. It's meditation. Florencius learned Jerome's words as he lettered them carefully, stroke by stroke, on that page on the left. They mattered to him. They spoke to him, apparently, about his own work. They stayed in his memory until he called them up and wrote them in his own voice onto this page of the sermon collection. In a sense, these really are Florencius's words now. He ate them. He digested them. They became part of his, he incorporated them. And that's what incorporate means, right? Corpus is Latin for body. So when you incorporate something, you take it into your body. So these are Jerome's words, but they're Florencius's too. He expected us, he was writing, the people he was writing for, he expected them to be monastics just like him. So he expected us to read in the same way he did. Attentively, repetitively, meditatively. Here's another page from that first book, the one that was made in 945. Again, if we were all sitting together, I'd ask you just to look at it, and I'd ask somebody to try to figure out what's going on. And then you'd say, oh, we don't know any Latin. What's going on here? We can't tell you. And then I'd say, well, look, see if you can find anything you recognize. Really, the more you look at it, it just looks like a random collection of letters. TNER, let me activate my pointer. So if you start at the upper left, here's my pointer, TNEROL. You don't have to know any Latin to know that that's not a word. So it's really puzzling. What's going on here? This page only makes sense if you think about it as a labyrinth. This is the labyrinth, the very famous medieval labyrinth, 12th century labyrinth from the Cathedral of Chartres in France. This arrangement of letters that seems random, if you treat it as a labyrinth and walk it with your fingers, with your eyes, and with your tongue, speaking out the letters as you go, it starts making sense. So let me give you a hint. Start right there at the center of the first line. I'm looking away because I'm looking at my screen, but I'll look back at you so you know I'm with you. If you start at that, and you can all see that's the letter F, I'm hoping, yeah? So if you start at that letter F, go to the end of the line, and then turn the corner and drop down to the bottom. You may not be able to see, and if you're watching this on your phone, there's no way you can see what it spells, but I'll tell you, here's what it spells. And I'm sorry it's in Latin, but here's the translation. Here's what it spells. Florentium indignum memorare. Remember, unworthy. Florentius. I wrote this book. Remember me. This single phrase repeats itself from this nodal F all over the page, left to right, right to left, vertically, horizontally, stepwise, over and over again. So let's start with that F. If you just drop vertically from that F, you can see it's Florentium indignum memorare, right? You have to turn the corner at the bottom to finish it. You start at the F, go to the left, Florentium. I hope, again, I'd be looking at your faces to see if you see this. Indignum memorare. It goes stepwise like this. It goes stepwise like that. Over and over and over again. So I spent some time with this page and I thought, how many times does he do this? Here's another discussion question. I'd ask you, how many times do you think he does this? Here's what I did. I made a colored photocopy and got colored pencils and started marking it up. I gave up after a while. So after I gave up, I asked another nerdy friend of mine who's a computer nerd, not a word nerd like me. I asked my computer nerd friend, and he wrote a program to figure it out. And here's his page about the program. This is for those of you who understand program talk. Here's what he did. He made a program to figure out how many times that phrase, remember unworthy Florencius, is repeated. Here it is. Somebody, a friend of his, animated it. I could let this, we could let this run for a while. So how many times total? 354,200. 354,200. So if you really spend time with this page, if you do anything other than say, God, that's cool, and turn the page, if you really spend time with this page, you don't really read it so much as you engage with it. You get lost in it. You support your work with your fingers. We don't do that now, or we do it when we wear gloves when we do it. But medieval folks did. Florencius, in another page in this book, also says, keep your fingers away from my letters because you're going to wear them down. So you don't read this page so much as engage with it. You get lost in it. You support your work with your fingers, tracing out the different versions of the sentence. You support it with your tongue. If you're a medieval person, you're reading over and over. Remember unworthy Florencius. You're meditating. This page is a prayer machine. So as a fellow meditator, a fellow memorizer, and a fellow writer, I recognize Florencius and his monastic sisters and brothers across all this huge gap of religious tradition and time and culture. Writers in their tradition teach that we must transform what we read into our very selves. They teach that you are what you eat, and you are what you read. In our tradition, I found that memorization practice does this same thing. When you memorize a sacred text, you chew it over, you break it down, you get all the juice out of it, and then you find there's more. You incorporate it. You take it into your body, as well as your body-mind. What you've memorized becomes a part of you. You've digested it. My ancient Christian monks, of course, read with their minds too. But they read to live their reading in everyday life. They recited their meditation practice throughout the day as they worked, as they did all sorts of things. Here's a Christian monk who I know that my guys and gals read. His name was John Cassian. He died, when did he die? Like 435. Here's what John Cassian said, and I'm quoting him now. We penetrate the meaning of Scripture not through the written text alone, but with experience leading the way. Let me give that to you again. We penetrate the meaning of Scripture not only through the written text, but with lived experience leading the way. This is very much what our practice is in Zen. Lived experience and the teachings work together. So our root teacher, Samsunen, says in the 10 Dharma Gates, and I'm quoting him now, the way of Buddha is no other than ordinary everyday life. Or from the admonitions to Dharma students that we work with as students in the training program, there is no enlightenment or truth apart from the common ordinary person and the everyday task. So work and practice. That's work practice, right? There's no boundary. We often lead our lives as if there were a boundary. There aren't. That's what my study of the Dharma and of these ancient Christian monks has taught me. Work and practice. Work and practice. Understanding of the teachings led by experience. And a meditative relationship to eating and reading. And that's what I got. Thank you. I'm finished now, Spencer, so you can make me go away.
Oh, please don't go away. Oh, thank you so much, Tong-san. It was a refreshing sort of view of how we can embody something such as reading that seems maybe just to be so intellectual, but rather just taking it in, digesting it, making it our own, and memorizing. So for announcements, then I turn the camera over to our memorization monk, our special memorization monk. Hi, Yoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tong-san. Just call me Ananda. Dear friends, welcome this beautiful Sunday morning in Ann Arbor, and I hope you are doing well wherever you may reside today. I have just a few announcements. One very exciting announcement for those of you who might reside near Ann Arbor is that we are in preparations for being able to hold a live, in-person outdoor service in the next week or two. So please check your e-bulletins to find out specifically when, because it could be as early as next Sunday or it could be the Sunday after, just depending on our internet issues. Because what we don't want is to lose those of you who are not in Ann Arbor, who we cherish having as part of our community. So we're just working out those kinks, but we are going to be moving outside very soon, and it's going to be really exciting and scary and wonderful. So we will let you know. And if you're not on our e-bulletin list, please write to us. Our email is AnnArborZenTemple@gmail.com, or you can do the old-fashioned phone call, which is 734-761-6520, and let us know if you're not on the list to be added. And so that's going to be happening. We also do every morning now in a little pretty big park right near us, Burns Park. We congregate every morning as the sun is rising. And isn't it beautiful how it's rising so much earlier these days and setting so much later? So we meet for morning practice during the week at 6 a.m., bright and early. So the only exception to that is Wednesday and Saturday. So we're 6 a.m. and then on Sundays, we start at 6:30 a.m. So if you'd like to join us, we're right by the bathrooms in Burn Park where the big lawn is there. It's really just us and the dog walkers, so it's very nice. And then you also can join us here at the temple for our 11:45 a.m. practices in person. We set mats out on our deck and open our doors and welcome everyone. So if you'd like to join us for that, 11:45 or 6:30 in the evening, just let us know you're coming and we'll set up a mat for you. And again, it's AnnArborZenTemple@gmail.com. Once again, always a plug for and a great deal of thanks for our intrepid garden crew who is here Saturdays from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If you would like to get your hands dirty, see the amazing amount of vegetables and flowers we're here growing at the temple, please come join us. No need to RSVP, just stop over in the backyard here from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. each Saturday. We're here. So aside from that, I do want to say that we so appreciate your contributions and continued support. You keep us alive in so many ways and help us to understand even deeper the interconnection that we all have with each other. So we are incredibly grateful and we feel that interconnection with all of you each day. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Ma'um again to lead us in the 4 great vows to end this service. Thank you.
All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates, one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Thank you for being with us today. Oh, please enjoy the rest of this lovely summer day. Maybe go to a lake or someplace where there's water, but just be outside